Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to speak here. It's an honor and privilege to be with this distinguished group of professionals. So when I got the invitation, I said, what do these brilliant Christian minds want me to come and speak to them about? And so I'll take it in two parts. I'll take a short discussion, and I'll take most of it from a Q&A perspective. Now, when you have Christians who work corporate sector, political sector, there's a lot of pressure on the people because of their value system. And for a lot of people, balancing that value system and the workplace is very challenging. But I always start with one thing. And what I always tell people is, God says he will bless the works of our hands. And then, seest thou a man diligent? Now, that word diligent is very important. And when I speak to people who have a contract, employment contract, which I speak to the people about in my congregation a lot about, I tell them to remember Jacob and Laban. And I ask a lot of them, I say, if what happened to Jacob happened to a lot of us, what will we do? A lot of people will say, they changed the terms of the contract. I'm not going to agree, blah, 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 blah. That's what a lot of people will do. I tell them to look at it and say, if it happened to you, just think of what you're going to do. What would you do? And so we have to remember three things. And I'll go from there and say we have to remember three things. Number one, wherever you work for, you've got to pray for that place. And a lot of people believe wrongly, not rightly, that they are not remunerated enough. In fact, most people believe that I'm working harder than, I'm not appreciated, and I tell people, you know what? If where you work, if it doesn't prosper, you can't prosper. So number one is you've got to pray for where you work. And you can't pray for an institution and be annoyed with that institution. And that's why most places I've worked for, people tell me, oh, you work so hard, you're so committed. I can't pray for something every morning and not be committed to it. Because what you pray for, spiritually, you become passionate about it. So I always tell people, you have to pray for where you work. Number two, value the opportunity you are given. I see it a lot of times. People believe that, they now believe they are the ones doing the institutions a favor. They're so good, they're so this, they're so that. And I tell people, value the opportunity you are given. Have a heart of gratitude. Value the opportunity you are given. Number three, your value system is very important. But you see, there's a difference between scriptural value system and your own personal value system. So my own personal value system can be, I don't like to go for social functions. It's a personal value system. There's nothing in the Bible that says I shouldn't go for a social function. Now, you work somewhere, you work with people, you don't go for any functions, you don't network. It's not a scriptural value system. It's a personal value system that is affecting you. And so I tell people, where you work, you're supposed to be professional colleagues. That one, you don't have a choice. It will be better if you were friends. It would be better if you were friends. And, a lot of Christians think it's very nice to be introverted. You don't mix with people. You don't go for people's functions. You don't network. That's not the way the world operates. That's not the way the world operates. And when things don't seem to work out the way they think it should work out, they blame everybody but themselves. Now, remember, the Bible says you will find favor with men. When you don't find favor with men, why do you think the problem is with men? Why don't you think the problem is with you? Why don't you think you need to make an adjustment? You will find favor with men. If you're not finding favor with men, why don't you think you need to make an adjustment? Why do we think other people need to make that adjustment? Why? And that's why I like Proverbs 21:5. And I want someone to read it out. I want someone to volunteer and read it out. Proverbs 21:5.
Proverbs 21:5. The thoughts of the diligent tend only to plenteousness, but of everyone that is hasty only to want.
Can you read it again?
The thoughts of the diligent tend only to plenteousness, but of everyone that is hasty only to want.
Okay. The thoughts tend only to what? Plenteousness. So why do we get into situations where we think that someone got something instead of us, and then because of that we're not happy? What is plenteousness about that? Why do we get into situations where we think if it's not me, it can be somebody else? Now, can you read the second part again?
Okay. That's verse 6.
No. You know, the thoughts of the second part. The second part.
Okay.
About hasty.
But, yes, but only of everyone that is hasty only to want. But of everyone that is hasty only to want.
There's no shortcut. There is no shortcut. That you're a Christian doesn't mean you mustn't plan. You must plan very, very, very well. You must plan very, very, very well. And there's no shortcut. There is no shortcut. There's no shortcut. So I see a lot of us, we think grace is the same thing as a shortcut. And so we don't put in as much effort. And I tell people as a Christian, the first thing people should know you with is your work ethic. The first thing people should know you with is your work ethic. If you go and read about the Protestant movement, the first thing people knew them was their work ethic. The work ethic. You should have a very strong and high work ethic. Your work ethic should be second to none. And that's what it means to say, if you see a man that is diligent, your level of diligence should be second to none. Number one, your work ethic very high. Number two, apart from that work ethic, you should plan very well. You know, you plan for different scenarios. You plan A, you plan B, you plan C, you plan D. Number three, you must be patient. You know, most people that you see in the corridors of power, they are very patient people. And patience doesn't mean you're not aggressive and you don't have goals. It means that you don't react to everything. You just don't react to everything. You know, I'm reading a book now, and the name of the book is Becoming by Grace. And it was written by the first CEO of Fidelity Bank, Mr. Nebulisa Arab. I didn't work with him, but when I started reading that book, you know, there was a part of the book where he spoke about the fact that he was an MD and he was removed because an interim board was put in place. I think he was removed in June and he was reinstated in March. And when he was reinstated in March, the court judgment was that he was going to go back as the deputy managing director. And he went back to the office. You know, and when I looked at some of the things and when I looked at some of the nuggets, you know, and he spoke about patience, he spoke about having a value system. But, you know, he spoke at times about the fact that you have to scoop low to conquer. And you see, the problem a lot of us have is that we take a lot of advice from people who have no experience in that matter. And the only two ways people get experience is either something that's happened to them or they are knowledgeable about a situation. Is either something has happened to them or they are knowledgeable. When I say something has happened to them, they've passed through that path before, or they are very knowledgeable about a situation, extremely knowledgeable about a situation. And so we ascribe a lot to things that, we just put things on our own head that really there's no need for it. And so I've spoken about technical ability, very strong work ethic and all that. Number two, you must learn how to get along with people. And it's a skill a lot of Christians learn late. You must learn how to get along with people. Not people you like, not people who are like you. You must learn to get along with people. You must learn to tolerate people. Yesterday, in the workers group of my church, someone put out a message and said, mention your favorite Christian character in the Bible. And then people were just, and give a reason, and people were mentioning various people. And then somebody said, oh, Mary, the mother of Jesus. And then the lady said she wondered how she handled the fact that people will have been mocking her, saying, really? A virgin? You got pregnant? And then I put a message there and I said, and some of us think we have been mocked in life. I said, and some of us think we have been mocked in life. And I said, look, and some of us actually think we've been mocked in life. And think of it, just sit back and think of it. You have a sister comes to meet you, put yourself in Joseph's shoes, just think back at it. And so patience, you have to be patient. You have to be very patient. Now, most things don't look the way people think they are going to look when they get there. And that's where wisdom comes in. I don't want to speak to you about wisdom and speak to you about wisdom, just wisdom, intelligence, Knowledge is different from wisdom. Wisdom is knowing when to apply your knowledge. You might have knowledge, but you might apply it wrongly. Wisdom is knowing when to apply that knowledge. And a lot of us fall short on it. Everyone is still learning on it. I'm still learning on it. A lot of us fall short on it. Wisdom is knowing when to apply your knowledge. And wisdom is, every day, everyone goes in wisdom. Now, for most of us, we look at ourselves, we aspire, we want to lead, we want to change the world, we want to do everything, but you know what? We don't want to get involved. And anybody that now gets involved, we sit down at the sidelines and then we mock that person. And we don't realize that the person has to be in to even have a chance of getting the prize. And so those who are in, we alienate them, and then, they become lonely there. And that's the only way they're going to get things changed, because things get changed in numbers. Things get changed in numbers. So if you look at ministry, if you look at the ministries you know a lot about, and I don't want to mention names of various ministries, things get changed in numbers. Things don't get changed in ones and twos. You look at social media platforms, they exert a lot of influence because they get a lot of members in. So things get changed in numbers. And we've got to start thinking like that things get changed in numbers. Now, how easy is it being a Christian, holding a senior role? Is it difficult? Very difficult. Is it easy? Very easy. Depends on you. Is it difficult? Very difficult. Is it easy? Very easy. It depends on you. And I'll tell you why it depends on you. In this age, in this present age, there's so much information and knowledge that it's almost a sin to be ignorant. There's so much information, so much knowledge, it's almost a sin to be ignorant. Most people, if you're going to work with most people, you can research 50% of that person online before you start working with the person. You can know the schools he went to, you can know the positions he's held, you can even know people you people know in common to strike up a conversation. You can know the places he's worked. There's just so much information. You can check the person up on LinkedIn, you can check the person up on Twitter if it's on Twitter. Well, that's before Twitter was banned. You can check the person up on Instagram. You can check the person up on Facebook. But you know what? A lot of us were lazy. We will be praying for the person. We'll be praying for God to change the heart of that person. We will not take any practical steps to do anything. We will not take any practical steps to do anything. So you work with someone. This guy is a Manchester United fan. He puts it up on his WhatsApp DP and he does all that. They play a match and they lose. You get into the office the next day. That's the first thing you are talking about. What is your problem? And you know this guy is a passionate supporter. Hey, just leave that bit. My brother, leave that matter and move to another matter. Just leave that matter and move to another matter. You just have to be emotionally intelligent. Now, it looks very simple, but a lot of us just don't do it. A lot of us just don't do it. There must be people who, I tell people that the easiest way to derail is having nobody who can talk to you. No matter how big you become, there must be people who, if they call you, you sit down and you listen. There must be people who you must respect to the fact that they can't deceive you. And there must be people who can call you to order. If you see someone who people cannot advise, it's a problem. Look for people who are in your field, who have done what you want to do and done it the right way. Look for those who have also failed, because they'll teach you a lot of things you will never know. We always want to find the ones that are successful. No. The ones that have failed, you learn a lot of things from them. Invest in relationships. A lot of us, we invest in relationships when the relationships have something to offer us. Invest in relationships when they don't have anything to offer you. Opportunity is a dividend of a relationship you've built. And I tell people, when you see two people arguing, when you see two people in an argument, there are three parties to that argument. The two people arguing and history. The two people that are arguing and history. History is why you see two people having an argument and somebody will say, that is how he always behaves. You see a husband and a wife and they say, he is fond of doing this. History. When you see two people arguing, when you get in and you want to mediate, you are mediating, talking to the two people. What you don't have is history. And that's how a lot of people get themselves into trouble, mediating in what they don't know. Because you don't have history. The two people, they know the history. So anytime you're called upon to mediate on something, corporate, personal, think of it. Do you know the history of this thing? There are things you can mediate in from a professional perspective because that's your role to mediate. You want to mediate in something that is a soft issue. Think of it. Do you know the history of this thing? Do you know the history of this thing? And anywhere you are, do your homework very well. Everywhere. Every institution has its culture. Some of us, except you are hired to change culture. Culture is the way things are done around here. If people are happy with their culture, that's the culture of the institution. That's what's kept the institution that long. Why do you want to fight that culture if your job is not to change the culture? Why? If they've told you this is the way we are around here, we're very aggressive people around here. Some institutions are very aggressive people. If they're very aggressive people, there's some institutions that if you work there, the impossible is the untried. If they tell you that their target for this year is 2 billion, if you tell them, I can't do the 2 billion, and you achieve 1.9 billion, they will say you did not try. If you tell them you can do it, and you achieve 1.7 billion, they will say you're a superstar. So you need to understand the culture of where you work. It's very, very important. Don't try and impose your own personal standard as a culture. There's a difference between culture and values and your value system. So a lot of us, we want everything to be like us in our image. My brother, my sister, you are not in the Garden of Eden. You are not creating. So you need to realize that bit. You need to realize that bit. And like I said, you need to build alliances with people. You need to understand that things will not always go the way you want it. You need to be able to dialogue, but also, like I said, your value system is very important. And so I will ask most people, I'll say, you know what, you know your value system. Your value system has a lot to do with your spirituality, your upbringing, you know. So there's something I always tell people. When people come and meet me and say, oh, something, I want to give you this, I crack a joke with them. I say, you know what? If I wanted to be collecting bribe from you, I should have been collecting it since. I can't start now. If I start collecting it since by now, at least I'll have enjoyed it for 20-something years. I can't start now. And, you know, I tell people you have to be very perceptive in the way you do things. It's not everything that you're given that you reject. Some, you have to be emotionally intelligent enough to accept and you declare later. Some, you have to be emotionally intelligent enough to reject at the first step. It depends on who is bringing it. It depends on how it's been given. The most important thing is it must not compromise your own value system. You know, you don't have to handle everything A, B, C, D. Finally, before I take the Q&A, because I think a lot of this will be Q&A, don't be predictable. You want to survive at the top? Don't be predictable. Don't be triangular. If you talk to this person like this, it's going to react like this. You're too predictable. You can't be predictable. Even football teams, when they are predictable, they lose. Don't be predictable. If you're predictable, people will set you up emotionally. Because I know that once I come in and I say, why did you do that? Once I raise my voice at you, I know you're going to raise your voice back. Don't be predictable. Don't be predictable. And that's why I spoke a lot about patience. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. That's why I spoke a lot about patience, you know. And like I said, that place you work for, you know, what a lot of us forget is that place you work for, you might have worked there for 10 years. And there's something they did not give you now, which you think you deserve. Can you look back and think of the 10 years and what they have helped you to become before you think of that one thing that you missed? And be grateful. Being grateful does not mean that you should not complain if you were cheated. They're two different things. But be grateful. Have a heart of gratitude. Even if they've employed you for 2 months, 20 years, whatever, have a heart of gratitude. And you know, a lot of things we think we want in organizations where we work for, practice it in your personal life. Practice it in your personal life. You want to work somewhere for 25 years. You want them to keep on promoting you every year. How many of us have kept the same people domestically for that same period? Oh, I want them to give me a salary increase. When they give you a salary increase, how many of us go back, increase the salaries of the people who work for us? Drivers, domestic aid. How many of us? How do we treat those people? We say, no, I know better. No, practice it there. Practice it in your own. It's training. You practice it there. And then you start realizing that some of these things that you complain about, they're not as straightforward as, you know, I worked in a company once and people were complaining. They said, look, the staff turnover here is very high. And the owner of the business said, okay. And then when tension was less, he was just asking people around, do you have a driver? I said, yes, because it was a lot of senior people. And then he said, how long has how many drivers have you had? No. I fired about 3, I fired about 4. Okay, you call. Okay. And the guy said, look, most of you, your turnover ratio is like 50%, and you're complaining of 10% turnover in the company. And then everybody was now giving an excuse why they had to fire that person. The guy was like, it's the same thing. That's what you have control over. Look at how you're handling it. He told them, he said, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. That the person works for you, what you do, you can't tolerate it. It's the same thing. That is just the same thing. It's just the same thing. And I tell people, if you want to change something somewhere, don't talk. If you want to tell people that, you know what, I think we'll be more productive if we resume at 7 a.m., don't talk. You be that example first. You be the example. When you are the example, when you have become that example, then go and have that discussion. You are already a living example. Don't tell people to do something you are not a living example of. You be that living example. You be that example. If you say, look, I think we should start doing this here, before you go there and say, you be that example. Now, when you want to be that example, you see how really difficult it is. But you know what? Because you've done it, speaking to people, people will listen to you more. And that people tell you no for something, be professional about it. Don't be emotional about it. They said no, fine. They said no, go back, you improve on it, you improve on it, you improve on it. They said no, fine. But you always make sure you must be that example, and it's the easiest thing to do. I tell people, the easiest thing to do is to criticize. And that's why when a lot of people get into leadership, it looks like, wow, this thing they were saying, you are now the one. The easiest thing to do is to criticize. So you be the example, volunteer a lot for things that are outside your scope. If anywhere you are working, if you are not working harder than they are paying you for, something is wrong. Something is wrong. If your job description is 7 things, if you do those 7 things, my brother, it's very easy to go to LinkedIn and find somebody who can do those 7 things. My sister, those things you must do far more. You must do far more. That is what diligence is. You must do far more. You must go above and beyond. You must go above and beyond. You must go above and beyond. Now, I always tell people something, and I'll close with this. I always tell people something. I say, look, the easiest thing to do is to tell people I'm a Christian. It's the easiest thing to do. The hardest thing to do is for your life to minister to them. Let people see you, the way you behave, the way you walk, your work ethic, the things that come to you, the way you react to situations, and then let them say, oh, when they hear, let them say, no wonder. That's why he went, and then they start thinking of examples and they say, no wonder. Not when you first see them, the first thing you tell them, don't you know I'm in this? Don't you know I'm in? Let your life, let your work, let the works of your hands, let your behavior, let it minister to them. So I'll stop now and I'll take questions and answers.
The first question says, what's the challenge with keeping your values as a Christian when you serve in corridors of power, especially politicians? What's the challenge? That's the question. Okay. Sir, Mr. Joshua, sir, do you want me to take all the questions and then you take it all together, or you want to take it one at a time?
No, I think I'll take it one by one so I don't lose track.
Okay, sir. Okay, so this is the first question. What's the challenge with keeping your values as a Christian when you serve in the corridors of power?
So, I think it depends on where you are serving and who you are working with. It's wide. It depends on the organization. It depends on the people you work with. A lot of it depends on the people you work with. A lot of it depends on the people you work with. I think number one is let people know your value system. Most people, I don't want to use the word hide, but you see, some people have a dual personality. Yeah. So they are like this at a point in time. Maybe on Sundays, they're like this. During the week, they are like this, So I always give an example to people. I say, look, if I'm relating with someone and you offer me something I think you should not offer me, the first question I ask myself is not why you did it. That's not the first question. The first question I ask myself is, what in the way we relate with each other made you think that? Because there must have been something I've done that gave you that impression. So I must have missed it somewhere for you to think that if I tell you to do A, you do it, So that's the way I always look at things. And I always say, look, let's go back and ask yourself, why did this person think A? I mean, some people are not even perceptive. They will just, anything they do to anybody, they'll just ask you the same thing. So it just depends on people. But, once people know your value system, it's not difficult if you don't try and load it on them. And that's why I keep on telling people, the first thing is, don't try and tell people that, don't you know, just, there are things people can offer, you can smile about it and you just pass the conversation. It's not everything you have to be aggressive about, especially depending on where you are in the hierarchy and the scheme of things. So someone can offer you something, come and say, oh, I want to do this. Unfortunately, I've never held a political office before. But if you're talking of the corporate office, I think it depends on your value system. I think it just depends on your value system. I think that's just what it depends. And how you manage it and come across to people. I think that's what's important. If you manage it very well, you will get one or two odd, don't get me wrong, you get one or two odd people who will almost, shake you up a little bit in terms of what they will demand. But the onus is on you to be able to explain it and let people know this is how you are, this is how things are. And like I said, you don't have to explain it as if you are crucifying the people or making them feel that, you just have to be calm about it. I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, so the second question, you mentioned not trying to change the place you are. That's their culture if they're aggressive. What is the balance of being the salt and light as Christians? Change agents versus knowing when to push for change in the workplace or stay silent?
So what does a change agent? So let's bring it down to practical. I have an organization, and the culture of that organization is that we are aggressive people and we like to get things done very quickly. Now, you are the salt, you're the light of the world, you're the salt. What does that have to do with the fact that I want to be an aggressive organization? I don't insult people. My values are very high. We're just an aggressive organization. So I tell people that you can be aggressive. You can be aggressive without insulting people. You can be aggressive without insulting people. Where you will be different is that you don't insult people. You don't. But what does being aggressive? And I think that's where we miss it at times. I think that's where we miss it at times. We try and combine things that have. That's why I spoke about your personal value system and scriptural value system. Your personal value system and what? Scriptural value system. So your personal value system might be, I'm a very calm person. Yeah, no problem. And these guys, they are aggressive, and they are aggressive in wanting to win business, but they are not doing anything unethical. They are just ambitious. And so let me give you an example. I was reading of a company today, OPay. They started in 2018. They just raised money today or yesterday or something, and their valuation is $2 billion. They started in 2018, and their valuation shows that they are now $2 billion. They say they have 300,000 agents. They process $3 billion of transactions. They are very aggressive. And if you look at that valuation is as big as any bank in Nigeria today. It's an overtly aggressive business. I mean, they must have been aggressive to have done that. Does that mean they're doing anything wrong?
Oh. Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay, so here's another interesting question. So this question says, thank you. Okay, how do you handle a case where a representative of a client is asking us to send a pro forma invoice and it will inflate when the purchase order is issued? Later, when we get paid, we do a return to like a kickback. Please share your views on how do we handle such. Thank you, sir. So basically, it's a kickback.
So the question is, the first question I'll ask is, what is the internal process of your own company? You see, forget what the representative of the client is saying. What is your own internal process? You know, and I tell people, I say, a lot of people get into trouble because you are not following your own internal process. What's your own internal process? Does your internal process allow you to do it? If your internal process does not allow you to do it, first tick one box. Now, maybe the person you are reporting to is now the person saying you should do it. Tick the second box. So, if I was in your shoes, I'll send it to him to send to them. I'll send it to the person. I'll send it to you. Oga, you can send it to them. Because what you're telling me to do is against the internal process. So I'll send it to you to send to them. If you insist and say, I should send this thing to them, I will send it to them and copy you and say, further to your instruction to send, I'll copy you. It will be clear that I have sent it, but you are the one that told me to send it. That is if it is within our internal process. It's not within our internal process. So the first thing I'll ask is, what does your internal process allow you to do? I know anytime you see situations that are subject to abuse, that's why I'm a big fan of automation. I tell people, you see, the more transparent you make a process, the better it is for everybody. But the easiest way to make a process transparent is to put technology on it. Once you put technology on it, it becomes hard. So can you imagine somebody in Facebook? How will the person ask you for money to open a Facebook account for you? How does a driver who's driving you on Uber tell you to give him a tip if you don't want to give him a tip? Because you can pay directly. So when you see those kind of scenarios, your best bet is push for automation. Automation saves a lot of people a lot of stress in terms of shadiness.
Okay. Right, thank you, sir. The questions are coming, and our time is.
Yeah, let's go.
We'll take questions as long as you are available, sir.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead.
Okay. The next question, this person says, what advice do you have for those of us who just left paid employment to venture into the murky waters of private business at this time?
You know, let me say, look, there's no good time, there's no bad time. And I'll give you an example. So before, if people wanted to start a business, they have to rent an office, now you have co-location spaces where you don't have to rent an office, you just rent a space. You have everything there. It's an office, they make coffee for you, they have internet connection. You know, there's no good time, there's no bad time. It just depends on what you make out of it. There's no good time, you know. I've never been a believer in 4 years ago was the best time or this. Because every day, the people venturing out and every day new things are being created. So I just gave you an example of a business that moved from in this same Nigeria. 2018, moved to 3 billion. I was reading about another business over the weekend. I think it's called Alezo. They're trying to digitize this business-to-business payment system, these informal traders. And the guy was speaking about growing up in Ibadan, that's how his mother sent them to school. And he saw how difficult it was, the whole process. And that process, I think they've already raised maybe $20 million. He just raised $10 million. He's converting his personal experience into a business. So for me, there's no good time and there's nothing wrong with it. There's so many opportunities coming up now. The digital space, everybody today is talking about fintech. Look, we will get to health tech. We will get to leg tech. We will get to, edutech. What is certain is that there's going to be a technology angle to everything. The people doing the technology are very important. The people who understand that process in that present, sector too, are very important. There's agri-tech. The opportunities can only become more. And there's never been a time where you've had as much information as this. So there's so much information, and that's what creates a lot more opportunities. So I don't think that anyone should fret. The only thing I will say is that if you're venturing out now, please leverage more on technology. And you don't need to buy anything that is very expensive. There's a lot of people trying out things with a lot of new technology. So just make the best use of that.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, so this is I don't know if this is a question. It looks like a comment. So thank you says, if our orthodoxy does not match up with our orthopraxy, then we are just liars. We have no information to action ratio. There's a way that the person born of the spirit behaves, and they are very clear. It must show true, regardless of place of time and place. Do you want to say anything about that, sir?
Sorry, the English is so big. I don't even understand some of the English. Huh?
Yeah, it's okay. So I'll move to the next one. So this person says, sometimes you intentionally or by default want to set the standard with how you do things, but your followers don't seem to notice it. It could be frustrating. What do you do in such instances?
So, let's assume you have 10 followers. You have to convert people. You might not be able to convert everybody at the same time. So you have to pace it. The ideal thing is you want the 10 people to come up to that standard immediately. That's the ideal thing you want to do. But get 2 first. Get 1 first. You see, the people you're trying to convert, you are operating here. They are operating here. They've seen you operating there, which is good. Now, when they see someone who was like them, who is now operating there, it energizes them. It encourages them, And that's why I said you have to be patient, but your patience must not turn to mediocrity. So there's a very fine balance you have to strike there. Your patience mustn't turn to mediocrity. So, and you need to get some people on board to understand what you're doing. So yes, you might not be able to get all of them. If you can't get all of them, then if it's a bigger team, just invest in 1 or 2, and then let those ones be the catalyst for the others.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so this looks interesting. What's your take on this? Is it right to join in playing office politics without compromising on your personal values, such as being diligent and ambitious in rising to the top? Is it right to join in playing office politics?
Let me tell you something. Everybody's a politician. I don't know why people keep on mentioning they are joining or they are not joining. They are either playing or they are being played. So, And this is the example I always tell people. I tell people that when someone tells me, oh, I don't play politics, I tell the person, okay, you have two uncles or two aunties. There are some that you will pick up the phone and call on a Sunday. You call them, you greet them. There are some that you say, no, 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 no. I need to take my family to go and see this one. Why? Why are you treating them differently? Because you know that they are different. You are playing politics with them. You are managing them. There is one that if you call, that one will tell you, you are calling. Have I seen my children? So, you know, it looks like a good word to say, but the truth is, everybody in one sphere or the other. The difference between a lot of people is that some people spend 90% of their time working and 10% playing politics. Some people spend 10% of their time working and 90% playing politics. There is no human being that spends 100% of his time working. If he tells you, if you meet a human being who tells you that, that person does not even know he's existing. If he says he spends 100% of his time, because when he comes into the office, when he sees, this is not the way he greets Mr. A that he greets Mr. B. Why? Because he knows something. Some people work in an office, they say, oh, call everybody by first name. But when they see some people, they'll say, ah, Mr. Kinney, why? But they told you to call everybody by first name. Why are you calling that one Mr. Kazu? Or you call the person Uncle this? You know, so there's a level of, the question is, you are employed to work. You must work. Now, as you work, you must understand one or two of the nuances, and you must be emotionally smart to be able to relate with people to get things done. That emotional intelligence of getting things done. Some people will call it politics, some people will call it, but you need that emotional intelligence to get things done.
Thank you very much, sir. I don't know if I can even chip this in from the meeting I attended and the first time I was privileged to listen to you last year. I mean, one of the things you said was in every organization where we work, that from time to time, opportunities open up. And, you know, some people look at the opportunity and the opening and they plan because you already know this position will be open. But some people sit down and pray about it. And when the opportunity is there, then they say they didn't get it. The truth is, there's an action you need to take, you know. I mean, it was more elaborate than that, but I just wanted to say that the reality is, if you don't want to play politics, then why do you feel bad when the position goes to somebody else and you didn't get it? You know, it means you wanted the position, but you didn't do anything about it. So the reality is, I mean, life is a fight for territory. We have to fight for what we want. I think the conversation is about how we go about it. Thank you, sir. Okay, there's another question here. How do you deal with a situation in a work environment where you are a minority as a Christian and others or support are taking advantage of that to share responsibilities and use the excuse that you are biased because they are of other religions? Okay, I don't know. Is the question clear, sir?
Yeah. So the question is clear. So there are responsibilities now. Because you are the minority, you are getting to do all the work. You know, the first thing is leadership. You have to get to sit down with that leader, you know, and, you know, they have to try and define it. Where things are not very defined is subject to a lot of abuse. Now, let me tell you something. It's not every time that you would get, in quote, things done fairly. Remember what I said initially? I said most times, most people, you have to work harder than what. Now, unfortunately, you know, the person asking the question assumes that he is getting the short end of the stick. See, and that's where this history thing I spoke about came in. The other people too might assume they're getting the short end of the stick, that this other person is playing the minority card. So the best thing is to try and get the boss to share it as, you know, just let everybody know, what am I supposed to do? what is this other person supposed to do? Now, you don't need to bother yourself with what Mr. A or Mr. B is supposed to do. What you should concern yourself with is to let the boss know, what am I supposed to do? Don't say, what's Mr. B supposed to do? Just tell the person, what are you supposed to do? Where we get into problems is when someone says this is what you're supposed to do, we now say, if I'm doing this, what's this person supposed to do? I tell people, it's none of your business. Every knowledge you get, everything you learn, nobody can take it away from you. Nobody can take it away from you. So don't think you are being cheated. Know that there's nothing you learn that anybody can take away from you. And if you have that as a philosophy, you'll find out that, you see, because that thing they're telling you to do today, in 6 months' time, if it was taking you 5 hours to do, it will start taking you 4 hours to do. It will start taking you less time to do. So if it's what you can do, ignore what they are giving the other people to do. If it is what you can do, you have enough time, you have the talent, you have the resources, and it's what you can do within the working hours, do it. Don't be asking what the other person can do. Most people, let me tell you something. Most people who get to the top, they are normally outliers. They are normally outliers in something. They could be outliers technically. They could be outliers in managing stakeholders. They could be outliers in, emotional intelligence, but they'll be outliers in something. They'll be extremely good at something. So you don't lose any knowledge. Just do it. It might not be what you want to hear. I'm sorry.
Wow, thank you very much, sir. I think that's the last question. What I have is a comment. Thank you so much, Mr. Gbolahan, for the brilliant session. Your words of wisdom are golden. Oh, it's a question, actually. Could you please share the most important leadership lesson you have learned in your career?
Okay. The first one is, I think, and I have to think a little bit of this because I'm trying to process between one and two. And I think it is to invest in relationships. And why I said invest in relationships is that, what I realized is that the higher you go, the more you need people to get things done and not yourself. And so when I say invest in relationships, if today someone calls you and says, come and become, the head of something, a president, a governor, any leadership position, the first thing you're going to need to succeed is people. If you've not invested in relationships, there'll be nobody to call. The opportunity can come, but you're not going to have the resources to do it. And at a particular level, you must be able to call on resources to help you actualize a vision. So I'll say as much as possible, invest in relationships. Invest in relationships. The best leaders I've seen are people who have invested so much in relationships that anytime they have solutions they need to, fix, they can easily get people who can help them. A lot of people think that the position is very important, but if you don't know people who can help you get things done, I know people say, oh, you can buy talent. Yes, you can buy talent, but the learning curve is longer. It's different from when you say, you know what, I know Gbolahan can do this. I know Mobolaji can do this. So if you've invested in people, and that's why you see some people get into a leadership position, they hit the ground running. Some other people get into a leadership position, it will take them a long time to hit the ground running. They're just trying to assemble a team. They're just trying to, and people who invest in people, even people who they're working with, people who they've just met today, tomorrow, they can galvanize a team. Because look, the job of a leader is to get the team to work. His job is not to do the work. So a lot of us think, oh, No, your job is not to do the work. Invest in people. Make it a point of duty to hire people that are smarter than you. If you have a problem working with people who are more intelligent than you, you are not yet ready for leadership. You're still ready to be led. Because think of it today, is the president going to know finance more than the minister of finance? Is the president going to know how to run a central bank more than the central bank governor? Is the president going to know how to run Nigerian Ports Authority more than, at the end of the day, you need resources, human resources to actualize whatever vision you have. So invest in people. As you move ahead, invest in people. Personal relationships, invest in people. Professional, invest in people. Church, invest in people. In your associations, invest in people. Societies, you meet people anywhere, invest in them, find out what they do, connect with them, just invest in relationships.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time. We know you're very busy, and it was a bit, must have been tough to get an hour of your time this evening. So we're very grateful. And I think we've taken the last question, no other question here. So I would hand over the meeting to, okay, Mr. Samuel Afolabi, I unmuted you earlier. I'm unmuting you again. If you can unmute yourself, and we'll take your question as the last question. I'm unmuting you now. Can you unmute your microphone? ESB Samuel Afolabi. Okay, please go ahead. Yes, good evening.
I'm happy. Okay, sir. Sorry, I went off somehow. I don't know if this question has been asked, but why the resource person was trying to teach us, he said something that was very critical. He said, if I got him very well, he said Christian businessmen should not be predictable. That we should be unpredictable. There was a time I had a problem. I was in a forum and I said that, and it took me off. It's like a kind of attack that, look, if a Christian is not predictable, there is not a Christian. Every Christian must be predictable, not unpredictable. So when he now mentioned it this evening, it struck my heart. And I said I was going to ask that question for him to throw more light on that. Because the general belief is, if a Christian is not predictable, there is not a good Christian. Every Christian must be predictable. I don't know what he has to say to that, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Now, remember, when I spoke about being predictable, I spoke about being predictable in the way you respond to things emotionally, in the way you do things. Now, we're not talking of predictability in terms of value system. They say today, you say today, I take bribe, tomorrow I don't take bribe. That has nothing to do with predictability. I'm not talking of, I'm talking of predictability in the terms of the way you respond to things emotionally. So, because you're a Christian, if I come and meet you every morning and I say, Mr. Tunde, good morning, you're going to greet me like this, good morning, because you're a Christian. If I come again on Tuesday, Mr. Tunde, good morning. Good morning. You're a robot. What I'm going to end up doing is, or if I raise up my voice, they're going to raise your voice. No. That's what I mean by don't be predictable. Because if you are predictable, remember, you're working in an organization. If you are predictable, then if something happens, if I want to get in quotes, if I want to, and I won't call it get your attention, if I want to get you to behave in a certain way, all I need to do is just to do something. Then you are predictable. You shouldn't be predictable. Let me give you an example. A boxer, and I'll use a boxer as an example. You have a boxer. The boxer says because he's a Christian, once he enters the ring, he will put his two hands like this. He will just be punching like this because he's a boxer. Is that what is going to be predictable? A footballer, he's a goalkeeper. Because I'm a Christian, anytime they want to play a penalty, I'll dive to the right. If I don't dive to the right, I'm no longer. Do you understand the context I'm using it in now? You cannot be predictable in the way you react to things from an emotional perspective. If you are in the corporate place, you're going to get yourself into trouble because it's just easy to get you to behave in a particular way. Now, your value system, that's what, at the beginning I said something, I said, your value system, not negotiable. This is what you are. This is what you do. This is the way you do things. Great.